Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here. Welcome back to another video for Monster Hunter Stories 2. And in this one, I want to put together a quick guide on the endgame, more specifically how to get through the Elder's Lair. For those of you guys that of course have got to endgame, you will no doubt have set foot in the Elder's Lair, which is basically one of your endgame activities. It is a series of floors that you work through. Each floor has its own challenges, and you get to the end of it and you get to fight a boss. Now in this video, I am not going to talk about the boss you fight at the very end. I think that is something you need to experience yourself. However, on the process of getting to said boss, there are a couple of floors that are quite challenging, and depending on the setup you have, they may well be a blocker for you. So I want to put together a few handy tips. I will say I don't have footage for all of this because actually one of the things I enjoy most about Monster Hunter Stories 2 on Switch is that I've been playing a lot of it in portable, so I did a lot of my Elder's Lair grinding without recording it, which is crazy for someone that makes content. However, I'm still going to share these tips with you. So I hope you guys find this helpful, but let's begin with the Elder's Lair itself. First things first, it starts off pretty simple. You go in and of course you meet the cats, and they basically say in order to progress to the next floor you need to complete the challenge. The first few floors are pretty simple. The first one is just defeat the target monsters. Nothing difficult here, you simply go and fight them. The only one on floor 1 that may give you a slight challenge is that you fight Pink Rathian and Azure Rathalos at the same time at the end. Again, not really that difficult. You then go on to some of the subsequent floors. The next one requires that you just break monster parts. This is a little bit long. The process is very simple. You just go into monster battles and you then break those parts on the monsters. It just requires that you do a bunch of hunts. Nothing complex here, just find the monsters and then go through and complete those. You will then get to floor 3, which will be your first taste of basically defeating a monster in a set number of turns. Floor 3 is super simple, so you shouldn't really have any difficulties here, but this is a mechanic that will return a little bit later on as you progress through, and it's a mechanic that will basically be where most people, if you're going to get stuck in the Elder's Lair, will get stuck. But floor 3, pretty simple, just make sure you defeat the monsters in the set number of turns. You then progress through another floor, which of course requires that you break some more parts, and you will then get to floor 5, which will have you hunting and fighting Velkhana. Now again, no footage of the Velkhana one here because that is kind of a spectacle, so I'm going to let you guys enjoy that yourself. The only one tip I will give you for this floor is that the cat tells you that there are loads of notes hidden around. Now you can ignore that and you can go straight to Velkhana and fight it. I will say, however, go and gather all the notes because they basically give you the details of how the moves work out. It's kind of like a puzzle in that respect, whereby it will say something like, if Velkhana does this particular move, the next move will be speed, the next move will be power, and given that this one in particular hits incredibly hard, you actually need to be able to have that information because a lot of the moves will quite literally one-tap you. So I would just recommend on that floor going around, gathering all of the notes so you can then use that to basically inform the battle and go from there. Now following that, you'll again be greeted by another floor of breaking some parts, and then you get to the floor that is probably where a lot of people are going to get stuck, which is the damage floor. Now this one is especially difficult. It's the one you're seeing in the background, and the main reason for that is because this is kind of like the mechanic earlier, whereby you have to defeat the monster in a set number of turns, but the added bonus here is that the only thing that really does damage is the weakness to that monster. And for the most part, a lot of your monster's attacks will do practically nothing. It is worth noting, pretty much everything in this challenge is weak to water, so this will be a point where you want to go and craft some water gear, and on the previous floors you would have done a fair degree of fighting Plesioth, so you should have the parts you need to craft some of the higher rank water items. Recommendations from me would be things like the Mizutsune Sword and Shield. That one is actually pretty nice. On the hammer front, I actually went and crafted the Plesioth Breaker. And then for the bow, you can either choose between the Hermitor bow, which of course is this one, or you could choose Heaven's Manor, which of course is the Mizutsune bow. I'm not a huge fan of these just because they are spread. Generally speaking, I prefer pierce or rapid bows, but for the purposes of this challenge, you are going to want a water weapon, and you're also going to want a weapon in each of the available slots because in order to get the most out of this, you not only need to be using advantageous weapons, you also need to be using advantageous elements because the first one is probably the most difficult. That's the one where you fight Gravios. The only reason it's really difficult is because that gives you the fewest turns. You have to do that in 10 turns. So what I would also recommend is getting Kyle on your team. If you get Kyle as the battle buddy, he will then have a Mizutsune bow, and together, between you and him, you'll actually make light work of most of these challenges. The middle one, Glavenus, is actually not too much of a challenge. The Gravios one is probably the trickiest one, and then when you get to the end, you'll be fighting Agnactor and Basilgeuse. Now this one, again, isn't too bad. You do have 20 turns for this, which is quite generous. My recommendation for this would be to handle the Basilgeuse, largely speaking, yourself with your slashing weapons, and Kyle will, for a lot of it, take care of the Agnactor. Anytime you're being targeted, it is still worth swapping to a bow to basically deal with Agnactor, and if you happen to have something that can paralyze, then pulling off a paralysis early on can control one of those monsters. Definitely super useful, but I would say having Kyle on your team for this whole floor is an absolute game changer. He will do some serious damage with that water bow and will make your life infinitely easier. So that is my main recommendation for this floor. Grab Kyle, make sure you have some water weapons, and then go through and try and make sure you're being as efficient as possible. Make sure you are always using advantageous weapons. Make sure you're trying to win those double battles and those head-to-heads, and you should be all good. Following on from there, it's pretty self-explanatory. The next floor will have you hunting Deviants, just defeat them, simple as. And the floor after that will have you hunting Elder Dragons, again, defeat them, simple as. So for the most part, those are a few handy tips for getting through the Elder's Lair up until the boss, at which point you can enjoy that one for yourself. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. Any more tips you guys maybe sort of thought of yourselves or things that have helped you, by all means drop them down below. But otherwise, keep it locked for plenty more. If you want to catch more from us at Arekkz Gaming, don't forget you can catch the guys TwoSixNine and Paradise Central streaming over on Twitch weekdays, playing a variety of games. If you guys want to jump in, tune in, watch, and even join in, then make sure you check them out. The links to those are in the description box down below, and of course you can join the Discord to get involved in all of the discussions.